Hey everyone, in today's workshop video I'm going to show you how to make your own no drown feeder if you only have feeders that are the well, affectionately called the drown feeders. These are open frame feeders and these are known to drown in there. Sometimes you can put grass, dried grass or straw or sticks in there that'll float to the level of the feed that you give them and prevent them from drowning. Or you can make your own if you have these by inserting a piece of wood along the top. That piece of wood's going to have holes drilled into it, and then you make your own screening to go down in, and that gives them a ladder to climb back up out of whenever they're done filling their gullet with. So basically we'll be using some simple tools that you probably have in your garage or your workshop. We'll be having a thin piece of scrap wood that's going to fill the entrance area here, and then we'll be drilling some holes and then using a number 8 hardware cloth as the ladders to go down inside the holes and collect their syrup, and that'll prevent a lot of the drowning that may occur in these. That way you can convert something that you've already got and reuse it, make it better. Now if you don't have scrap wood to use, then you may be better off just buying these commercially already made. Idea I've got is just to use what you have to make something better without having to buy any equipment, any additional materials. So I've got a lot of scrap that I've got in my workshop, so both number 8 hardware cloth and thin plywood. I'm actually going to be using something so thin it's called door skin. It's little over 1/8 of an inch thick, not quite a 1/4 inch, but it's pretty thin. We'll be cutting small blocks to put on the ends so that it can be screwed in from the ends and stay in place. So let's get started. Some of the tools we'll need for today's project are hole saw. That way it'll be able to drill a hole just inside the width of the feeder and still leaving enough wood for it to be structurally okay. I've got several sizes here because I've got several feeders that are of different widths. So for this particular one we'll be using I can't even read the diameter on here, I'll look at it later. And then I've got some door skin. I believe this is 1/8 inch. Don't know exactly the thickness, but it's just scrap. So I'll be cutting it to width and length to fit inside of here, and then blocks of wood to use as a holder to be able to screw into and hold it in place. And that's it for the wooden portion of it. And then for the ladders, we'll be rolling up number 8 hardware cloth, putting them inside the holes so that they look exactly like the ladders that are in the commercially made unit. This allows the bees to climb down, get the syrup, climb back out without drowning. First we're going to measure our width and length of the opening. I'm going to use the measurements at the ends because the center tends to flex in a little bit. So for this particular one, let's set it down, put my readers on. Inside width is about 1 5/8 inches. Let's check down here also, you measure twice, 1 5/8 inches there too. Maybe I may need to cut that down a little bit. And then our width is 17 1 2 3/8. Put this in here and mark our length. This isn't rocket science, so just approximating is okay. Alright, so we double check and make sure it fits in here. And I believe we're good. It fits right in there. Alright, so there's our end blocks. They're going to be attached like that. We're going to use staples just to attach them. It's going to go down inside, then we're going to use probably drywall screws to hold it in place. That easy. That'll be after I drill the holes here though, for the ladders. If you don't have a hole saw like this, or if you can't find the drill bit that's supposed to go in the center of that, You can also use a paddle bit. So what I use is a scrap board underneath to keep the board from splintering and falling apart. This paddle bit's not in the best of shape. It's rusty, it's a little wobbly, but you know what, it's going to work. I go halfway through, turn it over, and then do the other half. That way you reduce splintering. And there you've got a round hole. Let's do the other one. All right. Okay, so we're going to do a dry fit. Make sure that our piece of wood fits inside of here. Okay. And it looks like we've got a really good fit here. We'll be putting blocks in underneath so that we can hold this in place from screws on the exterior. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure our block is going the width side of a couple of staples in that end, spin it around, and a couple staples in this end. And that'll give us something to screw to from the other side. Alright, so we've got blocks there. I'm just going to use regular deck screws. Deck screws are coated so they won't rust. I don't know that it matters. Bees are known to drink just about anything. So we'll run the, I'm going to pre-drill a hole here and on the other side, and we'll run deck screws in there to hold it in place. Before I do that, I'm going to take a depth measurement so we know how deep we need to go with our screening to go all the way to the bottom. That way they can get every bit of the syrup that they can. And then we will have a homemade no drown feeder that is much like the commercial ones. Okay, now that we've got our blocks screwed on, we're going to pre-drill a hole with this set in place so that we can go ahead and get our depth set for the screening. Alright, we're going to pull on this and make sure that we've got a good, we got a good catch on that. So there's a little flex there. It's not a big deal. I'm not really concerned about that. So next I'm going to use a piece of wood to drop down in there as a depth gauge and see how deep and how much screening we need. Alright, so we've got a piece of wood, 3/4 inch. It'll fit in the 1-inch hole. We're going to call... So that's to the top of our wood. So we need to go at least that high. We're going to go a little farther with the screening because we have to fold over the bottom and we have to fold out the top so that bees can, or so that the screening can hold onto the wood here and so that we can cap off the bottom. I'm going to check the depth on all of these, make sure we're the same or we're pretty close. It's not rocket science again. There, we've got the same depth on all three. So now time to cut our screening. So whatever that depth is, we're going to add probably 1 inch on both sides. In the name of reusing old materials that I've already got, this is an old screen bottom board that I made probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years ago. It's got holes poked in it. It's no longer in service, and I don't use screen bottom boards anymore. So what I'm going to do is take this old screen off. I've got it just stapled in around the edges. Even the staples are starting to come loose. The wood's rotting, so this is ready to be taken out of service. I'm not even going to convert it to, actually I could convert that to a solid bottom by taking that off and then putting the same thin door skin over here and stapling that in And that's probably what I'll do on this one. The 2x4 material is actually pretty solid on this particular one. I've got others that are rotten though, so. But we'll be using this screening as our ladders to get down into the syrup for the bees. With our depth measured, with our depth gauge here, piece of wood, I'm gonna get an actual measurement. That's let's say right at 8 inches, 7 7/8. So I'm gonna add 2 inches. That gives us an inch at the top, an inch at the bottom, to fold over and make our entryway. So 8 inches, we're going to call that 9. Actually, let's go 9.5. I don't think we're going to need as much as. So 9.5 inches is going to be our overall length of the wiring that we're going to use. So that's going to be about to here. What I've also found is with the 1-inch holes in our no drown feeder, piece of PVC goes right in there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this mesh around the PVC so that we know how much length or width we need, with a little overlap, so that I can use a bit of wire to tie it together. It's much like making a cone for a trap out. So that's going to be our overall depth. Actually, I'm going to use that. Go this way. That way I can know I've got enough for 3 or more. Actually, we're going to go right here because I've got a line right here that goes consistently all the way across, and I've got bees stinging me in the forehead because I'm standing in the flight path of one of my hives. So. You can use a pair of utility scissors, you can use wire cutters, whatever you can to get the wire cut. This is a pair of scissors that my dogs have chewed up the handle on, so they're slated for the trash can already. So I'm going to use them on this. So this wire here is going to be our depth that we need. And that pair of scissors seems to be doing perfectly. Look at that. Put my reading glasses on so I can see which line I'm on. It may not be slated for the trash if it works that well. Okay. So for our depth, or width, I'm going to just wrap this around so that we have some overlap. Go a little bit for that overlap, and I'm going to cut. And then I'll use a bit of wire to tie all this together for each ladder set. I'm going to do this kind of tight so that I know it fits down into those holes of the no drown feeder. Just test fit that real quick. Decide that I've got tight. Look at that. Perfect. All right. Alright folks, you know what I said about reusing products so that our costs are minimal? The wire that I'd pulled off of this individually is not very strong, so it tends to break. I pulled some off to use to twist this loop together. So what I realized is that we've also got real thin wire in our old trash bag twist ties. It's about the same gauge, but it's a little stronger. So you can pull off the paper that's on there. Most of my trash bags now come with the loops so that you can tie them by themselves. So I had these just sitting in the cabinet, not being used for probably, I don't know, the last 5 or 6 years or longer even. So we're going to use twist ties, which are very thin wire, but it's strong, for our hold together mechanism for these tubes. Alright, now we have, from our workshop today, a no drown feeder, frame feeder, that was made from a standard frame feeder. That way you can convert. So I'll be using some blocks of wood to lift this up off my scrap. And then a paddle bit. The paddle bit's not in the best of shape. So I go a little over halfway through, and then I turn it over and go from the other side. That way we'll reduce splintering. Hey! Boy, that didn't work, did it? Outtake.